Hi everybody, Matt and Tom back with you. Today we're having a wander through Rochdale Cemetery. Apparently in this cemetery it has a very special feature. There are 28 stones from 28 different places and of 28 different types of stones. We're going to see how many we can find whilst we're here. But also whilst we're here, we'll see if we can find some faces from the past that you may remember. Some of them for good reasons, some of them possibly not. So the first grave we're looking at today is an incredibly difficult grave to explain really on a video like this, exactly what happened. This is the grave of Stefan Kiszko, which is a name you might remember. Unfortunately, Stefan was jailed for 16 years for murder, and it was a murder he didn't commit. And it's been classed as the biggest miscarriage of justice in history. Stefan Kiszko lived in Rochdale with his mother. He was a giant of a man, but classed as a gentle giant, had never been in trouble with the police, but was described as an intellectually disabled man, at the level of roughly a 12-year-old. In 1975, a girl called Leslie Molseed disappeared. A few days after her disappearance, sadly, she was found dead, murdered. The usual police investigation was launched. 4 girls came forward and said that Kiszko had exposed himself to them at various points. This set alarm bells ringing, and soon the police had arrested Kiszko. Thinking the best thing he could do was perhaps to plead guilty and then it would all be over. That's what he did, but soon he found himself in court. And following a trial, he was convicted of the murder of Molseed. His mother tried various times to appeal the sentence, but each time this was quashed by both Cyril Smith, the MP for Rochdale, and even Margaret Thatcher. Eventually, 16 years later, there was an appeal. It was found all 4 girls had lied, that they'd just set up Kiszko for a laugh. It was also found that 3 members of the investigation team withheld evidence that would have proven that Kiszko was innocent. It was finally released in 1992, but died just 22 months later. He never received any compensation for his wrongful conviction, and the case is still described as the worst miscarriage of justice ever. The next gravestone to look at is on a slightly lighter note. Who remembers this guy? So this is the gravestone of Estelle, who, if you were around in the 1970s, You'll probably remember him as both an actor in the comedy series It Ain't Half Hot Mum, but he also had hits in the charts with his friend and co-star Windsor Davies. So Don Estelle played the part of Gunner Lofty Sugden in the 1970s TV show It Ain't Half Hot Mum. It was an interesting name for him to be given, due to the fact that Don was only 4'9". During the peak of the popularity of the show, Don and Windsor Davies had a #1 hit in 1975 called Whispering Grass. He and Davies had been friends and had worked as a double act in clubs since 1962. Personally, I prefer their version of Cool Water, and if you listen to it, you tell me if there's a difference between Don Estelle and Roy Orbison if you shut your eyes. Throughout the 80s, he appeared in films such as A Private Function with Michael Palin and Santa Claus the Movie. But sadly, his star faded, and by the end of the 90s it was down to recording duets with MP Cyril Smith. I suggest you probably don't look that one up. He could also often be seen at Rochdale Market, dressed in his helmet, singing away, selling tapes of his recordings. Don passed away in 2003. So this gravestone is the grave of John Ellis, and his job for over 20 years was executioner. John Ellis was previously a newsagent and a hairdresser before a very different career happened upon him, and he became a hangman and an executioner for the Crown. Ellis was responsible for the hanging of a number of high-profile convicts. Most famous is probably Dr. Crippen, but also includes arsenic poisoner Frederick Seddon, solicitor Herbert Armstrong, the only solicitor in the UK to ever be hanged, and Edith Thompson, who was convicted alongside her husband. Her execution went terribly wrong, and this led to Ellis resigning from his role as executioner. He suffered badly from depression, drank heavily, and then attempted to commit suicide by shooting himself in 1924. He survived that, but suicide attempt was a crime, and he was found guilty of that. However, he succeeded 8 years later in taking his own life. Ellis's diaries are available as a published book. So we don't do particularly well at finding the 28 stones in the cemetery from 28 different places. Here's just a few examples we did find, including perhaps the most impressive one is this one, which is from the Giant's Causeway, and this one from Dinoric Quarry in Wales. Maybe another day we'll pop back and have a look at the cemetery again. It's also the place where the Rochdale Pioneers are all buried. Due to the size of the graveyard, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to find the fourth grave we were going to talk about today, which is this one, which is a recent addition to help commemorate those boys of the Catholic Boys' Orphanage at Buckley Hall. This was a mass grave of about 30 boys, which was unmarked. But recently, it was commemorated with this headstone. So there we go, so that is our look round Rochdale Cemetery. This has got to be one of the biggest cemeteries I've ever walked around, but somehow we did manage to find the 3 people I wanted to show you. Sorry we didn't find the Buckley Boys orphanage, but at least you can see the pictures of what was there before. But yeah, huge graveyard. How many stories are in here? That's for another day. Take care, see you soon.